Boktai, The Sun Is In Your Hand, originally came out in 2003 for the Game Boy Advance, developed by Konami Computer Entertainment Japan. That's the dev team listed, so I guess it wasn't really dedicated dev team per se for this one, at least the name, but it is also produced by Hideo Kojima, typically produced by him, with the actual director being Koya Nakamura. The main premise: the world is falling into the age of darkness, with undead beings popping up all over, attacking humanity, with certain dark beings being comprised of dark matter being called immortals, who, as they suggest, are immortal, all-powerful beings who are enacting a plan in order to pretty much remove all living life and fill the world with undead creatures. And as things seem bleak, one young boy shows up named Django, or whatever you choose, because you can name the main character you want, you can put whatever, shows up being related to the previous legendary vampire hunter and coming equipped with the Gundel Soul on a mission to stop the immortals. Despite how granular their premise sounds, there's not actually a lot of characters that you interact with in this game. Like, for the most part, interactions are generally with the antagonist group and like two of their allies, one being with you, being Master Tenko, but overall, it's not really as grand as the premise seems, a background, narrative, everything, because they're mostly just going through the motion and going through the dungeons in order to take out the immortals. Like, how they go through the motions, not even like really any big hub areas. There is one general safe area you can go to, which is the Gaia tree, which key can do stuff like plant fruit, but overall, you're pretty much just going from area to area, going through dungeons, and there are a lot of dungeons in this game. Overall, the story is fine. It serves its purpose. It's not anything bad or anything amazing. There'll be any twists you probably won't see coming. It's fine. It's its purpose. It's okay. Although I do like the fact that the game does go for using more classical horror icons like vampires or Medusas and whatnot when it comes to the roster of this whole entire game, even to the point that freaking mid-development Kojima wanted a breath sensor so the game could smell garlic from your breath that would harm the enemies since they are creatures of the night. Everyone shut that down because what the hell are you thinking of? We already got a solar sensor here. Though I will give a shout out specifically to the character of Tenko, mostly because he is the master character, so he is the one teaching you and guiding you, but there are moments where he himself break character situations and even acknowledges that, oh, I should not have been like that. That's not becoming a proper of me. So there's stuff like that, I really like that. Even him, who's trying to be this more pretty much master-like person, can fall to his emotions and give some bad ideas or suggestion based off of that. So I do like that as it comes to Tenko specifically. Now for the gameplay. The gameplay is a top-down action game, in this sense being your main and only weapon being the Gundel Soul or Solar Gun. But with it being one weapon, you can customize it with several modes depending on what you have, such as different lenses that can change the element it fires, which can help you in certain locales to enemies, or even have effects in the environment, or the frame of the solar gun to get more frames. You can then change how it operates, make it more powerful, make it more stun based, make it to automatic fire, so there's stuff like that, like when it comes to customization. And I love the fact that they made visuals to the changes to the Gundel Soul as well. Like, you see it visually changing the more you upgrade it and get stuff. That sort of stuff like that, although I wish the grenade section of it really had more useful ones, because aside from the regular grenade and one that makes a temporary freaking source of sun, the rest are pretty bland, because the scan one just, oh, it reveals invisible things. You already have items for that, it's kind of redundant. Or, oh, one that only affects the most generic enemies, it changes them. Why do we have so many of these grenades? Why do I need so many of these things? So there is, I wish more could be done with that when it comes to the grenade aspect. And also the battery one, I'm surprised it's not just a guaranteed upgrade, because when I gotta equip a new one, like, at what point would it be better for me to equip having less solar battery on me at any point? That's a weird aspect. Not much earlier, the game had a solar sensor, which the original intent when the game was new would require you to go outside and have sunlight touch a solar sensor in order to recharge a solar gun, or be used for puzzles, because there are some puzzles that require having sunlight touch the solar sensor so you can create a pathway. Sometimes you need a certain amount of sunlight, like not too heavily strong, but not too weak. Sometimes it'd be like, oh, the winds in this area are being affected by the sunlight, so now you have to go into the shade in order to stop the wind from being a hazard. Also, in fact, I believe enemies, at least generic enemies, also move faster during the sunlight as well. So it does also affect enemy behavior as well when it comes to that, which is a cool touch. That also means that when the game's at night, it will spawn more enemies of freaking undead variety in order to pretty much fill the area, which if you just turn your game setting to pretty much the time be night, but in reality, in real life, it's still daytime, you can technically abuse that, because that means every single spot on the freaking map will be sunlight filled, and generic fodder get obliterated when in direct sunlight. So that's not just an emulator only thing can do, that's also something they can just do with the game naturally, just lie about what the time is when it comes to, oh, what the time zone and everything is. There is also a safety feature both in universe and outside the game, which is the fact that being under intense sunlight for too long will make the gun nail saw overheat and make it unusable, requiring you to go into the shade for a good amount of time. This is both a way for you to not just abuse staying in the sunlight, also for emulation wise, not just abuse having high sunlight at all times, you can make your gun overheat, leave you defenseless, and also safety features that way the player does not kill themselves playing this game. They even make the note that it's important you take care of yourself because there's only one of you and you need to be the one to save the day. So I would like to note that they do have a safety feature to make sure players don't do that. Remember that, although when I played the game back in the day in the physical cartridge, I never had enough intense sunlight going out, at least where I was at, in order to trigger the overheat mechanic. At least I never probably stayed in that for long enough. I mentioned earlier, it's an action game, so you go through places. You do have light stealth elements, because you can find yourself on walls and stuff, and enemies can be alerted by noises, whether it be ones you intentionally make, like knocking, which it feels similar akin to the Metal Gear franchise, but also stuff on the ground can be like special panels that can cause noise, so enemies will hear you, follow the noise, but it also means you can use them for a trap when jump at enemies, because taking enemies from behind will deal extra damage than normal, which is a freaking cool feature. It's also the fact that I love the fact that you go to a dungeon, there's also puzzles, several different types depending on the locale, with the most dangerous of all, the most dangerous fish kind of puzzles, arithmetic puzzles. The game wants you to do math at points. How dare these immortals instill math problems into their lairs? Going through dungeons solving the puzzles is all good and fun, but what I love the most is the fact that after the mortal is defeated in a boss encounter, you then have to drag their coffin back out of the lair and towards the pile driver that Otenko always sets out towards the beginning of the dungeon. And it has you now rethinking certain aspects of the dungeon and how to bring the coffin back. Although if you pretty much remembered your way through, it can be kind of a breeze to go back, because sometimes it's easier just retracing your steps and you can just do that pretty fast. But if you're taking time to ponder, just note that the coffin will start to go back to the boss room if you leave it alone for too long. Sometimes in dungeons there are places where you can put what Otenko puts a sun barrier, which will make it so the coffin can't move. You can basically take your time to think while doing stuff, trying to make a pathway back. But I think I pretty saw those like twice in my game, I'm not sure if I just did it wrong. So either way, just kind of dragging them back, but I said, tends to be a speedy process if you remember how you got in. Only sometimes it could take a completely different pathway entirely to get them back out. And the gameplay when you do have to fight one of these immortals outside the power driver is the fact that they'll generally come out of the coffin and start trying to attack you, while also trying to corrupt the power driver in order to stop its attack. So it's up to you to pretty much keep the power driver going, although there is one thing where the bosses does that I freaking love, not surprised, is the only boss to try this sort of trick. So there is that aspect comes to it, but I will say when it comes to these segments, when it comes to the power driver, it can feel very samey since it's just the boss using their one elemental ability to attack you in order to try and stop the power driver, although some of them may have sometimes one other method to the power drivers on top of just the basic corruption. But also here, the intensity of the sun touching the solar sensor will increase the damage done to the immortal, so the more sunlight you have, the faster these segments will go. And that's important because Boktai constantly grades you on everything, whether it be trap rooms where you have little challenges you gotta do, or entire dungeons are actually grading you and seeing how well you're doing, with you getting better rewards based on their grade. And these grades do matter because at the end of the game, you are given a title and a long password, with you can take that long password with you into the next game, Boktai 2. But that's for Boktai 2, right now Boktai 1. But these things do matter when it comes to that, and the game does also judge how many of the dungeons you've done, and how many of the side dungeons you have done, pretty much specifically, and when it comes to progress through the game. Now, with the emphasis on sunlight, you may think that means this game can only be played when the sun is out, which makes the game pretty much only available for hypothetically half of a day, but there are other methods when it comes to pretty much trying to use backup plans, whether it be the fact that you have solar stations that generate sunlight for you and stores it so you can retrieve it later, the solar bank, which you can pretty much put solar station sunlight into it and get more with interest, the dark loans, which you can pretty much take a loan out for sunlight and potentially put yourself in debt because they have ridiculous freaking rates, so don't ever do it. Don't do it. You also have items that can restore the sun meter to the solar gun as well. You also have a lot of places that generally throughout the cat dun layers have like holes in the sky so you can pretty much regain sunlight and that. But there's also, like I said, the grenades, one of which specifically allows you to make a temporary sun source, which you can use to recover sunlight and everything. So there are many ways to do it, but when it comes to like the big events, you do need some sort of sunlight touching the solar sensor, and there was one dungeon in particular that explicitly would not allow me to progress until the game started clock, since that it was daytime specifically. So there are some sections where it'll be like and also the solar bank, I believe, does close at night as well. So there is that aspect, but solar stations will still be available. The items you get to restore your sunlight will be there, so you can make preparations through the dungeons and progress to prepare for the big battles ahead with the immortals. Something I'll say I don't really like about the puzzles is that they are easy to screw up. Like, some of them are very simple, but there are some that can be real head scratchers, and the issue isn't the fact that they're head scratchers. That's probably a cool and good thing. It's more the fact that some of them can be a case of, if you screw up one thing, you have to basically reset the entire room, and you can pretty much waste like several minutes of progress, or even longer, with constantly retrying over and over. Like, there are some puzzles, and I mean very rarely, where they will allow you an option to just basically skip it, or the game will call you a loser for doing so. Or ones that'll give you hints, but the more hints you take, it's about to the game call you a loser. So those puzzles kind of hints are very rare, strangely. It seems like that kind of mechanic, they would have just been like hey, here's a give up button at that point. But no, there's even a card you get early on that allows you to just reset puzzle rooms called the full card, which once again, the game is making fun of you for not being big brain enough. But I said it would be a shame because there are people who don't get some of the puzzles, and there was one puzzle in particular towards the end of the game that, for the life of me, I could not figure out what I wanted to do, and I looked up the answer, and even other people didn't know what the game wanted from them. Even other people didn't even understand why the answer was the answer it was. It just was, and we just accept it. Screw the logic. Overall, I liked Boktai 1 as a kid, and I still like it a lot now because it's just a cool kind of adventure game, if it's the sunlight. Like, even without being able to play it as it was intentionally designed with the solar sensor, it is still a cool action puzzle game. It's still just a cool game with cool ideas that I'm glad got made, and I'm surprised, like I said, despite the fact that this has Hideo Kojima's name on it, despite the fact that Kojima titles like Metal Solid Peace Walker or MGS5 The Phantom Pain have references and Easter eggs to freaking Boktai, also MGS4 Against the Patriots. somehow Boktai has gone completely under the radar. Like, Zone of the Enders gets more recognition in this entirely, which I understand, because I don't mostly care about Zone of the Enders 2. Zone of the Enders 2 is freaking awesome. But we're talking about Boktai here. I'm just surprised that it just doesn't get as much attention. Like, whenever people have an AMA, I will always be there to ask if they've played Boktai, and every single time, they have no idea what it is. And everything gets surprised that it's a game that was produced by Hideo Kojima, because you think they would know about a game that has Kojima's name on it, but said he's a producer, not a director. Although the credits do say that the story concept was from him, so he has a lot of input when it comes to the game's production, rather than just labeled as solely the producer. But it's one of those things that I'm surprised isn't as well known, and I'm always that person that's like, can we get ports of the Boktai games? And people say, what about the sunlight sensor? And let's just say Lunar Nights, the DS entry, made an entire game without the sun sensor, although you could optionally put it in if you had a copy of Boktai 1, 2, and 3. So I mean, it's an option, but they made Boktai games without the sun sensor, and so it is possible to do it. Even with fan patches, we've seen they can play Boktai with just simulating the solar sensor. I think people have been saying they could do it on stuff like smartphones, with the cell phone's camera being the thing to detect the sunlight, which is freaking cool. I didn't even know about that. So there are ways to do this kind of thing, whether it be just removing the entire solar sensor and this aspect entirely. It can work because I said without it, it is still a cool action freaking puzzle game. It is still a cool game with or without the sun sensor, which many games that rely on a gimmick may not be able to afford the same kind of. It would still be good without the gimmick, but it's a game I wish would come back, and I wish we get more from Boktai, especially since Boktai 3 got officially localized. It's a French translation, but never officially localized, and Lunar Nights got its name rechanged from Boktai DS, because Konami didn't want people to know it was a Boktai game because of its poor sales, and yeah, I did. I saw that box art, and went, that's Boktai. But I'm just rambling, getting off topic here. Either way, Boktai, super cool, although you can only play it nowadays through emulation, so that's the only option you really got, unless you want to pay secondhand prices for Boktai. Anywho, freaking Boktai is awesome.